Hello, welcome to part 3 of the iconic bike liveries on GT3 cars in Gran Turismo 7, and we're going for the Porsche today. I'm having a bit of an issue with what cars to do things for, since there aren't many bike and car manufacturers in the game, but I thought the design for this car is going to fit the shapes of this bike really well. So we're just starting off by trying to get the colours right, so I'm using the main logo that I'm going to use on this car and just overlaying a basic shape and trying to match the colour as close as possible. And I think I got kind of something as close as I'll probably get. It's probably not 100% perfect, but it's pretty much there. So once I'm happy with the colours, all the usual tricks, I've got a base colour of carbon fibre on the car. I then put a layer of any decal you want. I just use a rectangle and enlarge it as much as possible. And then change the projection so it goes all the way across the car. Some cars you don't have to then duplicate the layer, so you save a layer. Sometimes that's important. This car, very important. I ended up maxing out the layers on this, so just by saving that one layer makes a massive difference sometimes. Other cars you will have to duplicate the layer again to make sure you cover the side there completely. But once we've done that, I'm now laying down the basic shapes. There's quite a lot going to go on in this this design in terms of layers going below stuff, outlining, and also shadowing. So I'm kind of getting the base colour done first, making sure the shapes are nice. I'm happy with the shapes overall for the design. And then I'm going to go back in after I'm happy and then start doing the outline, trying to make sure the thicknesses and stuff are correct and as I would like them. So I've almost done the first section of the car now. I'm fairly happy with it. So we're now going to do the outline. So you can see here we're starting just by going and finding the layers, duplicating them, moving them below all of the dark blue sections so they go behind and there's nothing seeing through, and then just about trying to get it's line it up by eye really, so making sure hopefully most of the lines are the same thickness all the way around. Is it 100% perfect? Probably not. It's difficult to line stuff up in the game with the different shapes that are available, but again, it's just about trying to make sure it looks as good as possible. If you zoom in too far anyway, the lines are a little bit fuzzy just because of how the game works and how the decals and stuff works, and there's a lot going on and there's a lot to be loaded in on the car. So as long as it looks decent from a little bit further back, then it's absolutely fine. It's going to do its job. It's going to look as good as it possibly can. So we're just going around and literally doing that process for all of the shapes we've done so far. Again, some of them are easier to get right than others. Some take a little bit more fiddling. Again, here I'm making sure I'm checking the layer depth and making sure it goes all the way through and it doesn't leave any kind of jaggedy edges on the side. You might have just seen there, I put a red dot randomly. That's something I do on helmets quite a bit because the layers on helmets are really difficult to find if you need to go back and edit them. On this design, I wanted to make sure it's really easy for me to find the different sections of the car. So now I finished the first section, I just place a red dot, hide the layer so I can't actually see it on the car. But if I need to go and find a certain part of the car, I know I can find that red dot and it's going to be much easier for me to locate the right decals that I need. This is probably the longest part of the design it took me to get right. I couldn't quite get the shape of this bit right to complement the rest of the car, and I was fiddling around for hours. Well, I say hours, not hours obviously, I'm exaggerating. The whole design took me probably 2.5 hours without making decals and sourcing decals as well. So it felt like it took hours to place those few decals correctly, but it was probably a couple of minutes just faffing around with those two. And again, I'm trying to kind of follow the lines of the car, making sure everything is complementing the lines, it's flowing, it doesn't look awkward, and again, trying to stay true to the actual bike. If you haven't already guessed what the bike actually is, you might have guessed straight away from when you saw the logos at the beginning, but this is, I think, the 04-05 kind of year. I'm not a massive boffin with bikes and the years and stuff. I'm pretty good at knowing where roughly things existed. But this is the Corona Extra Suzuki of Troy Corser. I'm pretty sure it was 04-05, something around there anyway. It's probably one of my favourite bike liveries, at least in World Superbikes. Maybe at least top 5 all-time favourite bike liveries. So I was kind of trying to replicate those shapes, but also make those shapes and adjust them slightly so it fits the Porsche. And being quite curvy in a bubbly car, I think it worked really well. I was really happy with the outcome at the end. So we're almost now finished off getting the back section. Again, this is another bit I was struggling with. I was trying to get the shape a little bit more curved so it's coming back on itself rather than just a straight line, and it took a little bit of fiddling to get that right. So just filling in the blank spaces now until I'm happy with all the sides covered correctly. Again, changing the projection to make sure everything is covered as it should. And then again, see, I'll go back and change this again because I wasn't quite happy with it. These little decals, I love these decals, but they are awkward to get right. I tend to use about 3 or 4 different shapes in most of my liveries. This one is no different. Circles, triangles, squares, that little corner piece, and that kind of scallop that I've been using quite a bit in this design. You can kind of do most things just by using those. So you don't have to go overly complicated with stuff, and you can kind of make custom shapes in the game if you're not one for doing stuff on the computer. Same process as the front of the car, just now going back and adding layers underneath, duplicating the edge layers and then moving them underneath the darker blue sections. Again, trying to keep the thickness of those lines somewhat consistent. That bit there is not perfect. If you zoom up close, it's a little bit wavy and not 100% right. That's just me being a bit of a perfectionist. But again, overall, it looks as it should. It kind of does the job. And yeah, does a reasonable job of replicating how the bike actually looks. So it's just more of the same at this point. This is quite a long time lapse because the video was quite long. So I'll just speed this bit up a little bit and then I'll come back to you when there's something more interesting to talk about. Right, so again, we're now finished that section. So you can see I've added another little red dot just to know I've done that section. I can easily find my decals. We're now kind of doing the bottom of the side of the bike, which is kind of a black straight edge with lots of the sponsors in. It's also got a bit of a white faded kind of gradient from the bottom. So here I'm just trying to get that gradient right. I had to move the white all the way back to underneath everything. And I didn't like the harsh line it created, so I just added a bit of a yellow gradient in here just to blend it all in, so it looks like that black section is kind of glowing a little bit. I then placed a number board. I'm using number boards on all these bike series, although they don't actually have number boards obviously on them per se. Related to the series, they all have their own unique numbers. I am trying to make the GT3 cars look like the bikes, therefore I am putting the GT World Series challenge boards on all these cars just to make it look a bit more authentic. Here I'm adding a few more shapes over the top because that's what the bike does. So you can see there I've got another kind of scalloped edge, and now I'm adding the black shadows underneath all of the edges. This is where I think the bike really started, or the car really started coming to life and really started to replicate what the bike actually looks like. Just adding that depth to it, making it a little bit more interesting, and just making some of those edges stand out a little bit more. So I was consistent with the whole thing. I only done the underside of the layers because that is how the bike is. And again, I want to try and keep it as authentic to the bike as possible. And we're now coming towards the end of the side, and I'm pretty happy with how the side has turned out. It kind of translated from my head onto the car fairly well. I then decided there needs to be a little something here as well. This was a little bit fiddly because I was working with thinner angles and thinner shapes. I was trying to kind of make it go in 2 different directions there as well. So this took a little bit. Some of the decal started to bleed under where the rear light is as well, so I had to change projection levels a little bit to make sure that those weren't bleeding through and they looked okay. Trying to get the thickness here was a little bit tricky, and I had to use a few more layers than what I'd have liked to have done, but overall the look of it was good in the end. I had to just go and change some of the projection again to make sure all of the yellow was covered behind the light. And then we moved on to the light section. I don't like some of the newer GT3 cars because the bonnet is included as the body, which means you get less layers effectively. at this point I'm already kind of a little bit worried that I'm not going to get all this done in the amount of layers that I've got. So I'm trying to get this side done before, or this side near the light at least, done before I go and duplicate everything, and then I can see how many layers I've got to play with when it comes to the bonnet, and when it also comes to the roof and stuff as well. So it's just making sure one side is done completely before I duplicate it all, and I'm happy with it. It means I don't have to keep going back and finding layers and it'd be awkward. So yeah, just making sure it all flows. Obviously that's not part of the design that is on the bike, because I'm trying to put a design on from a bike onto a car. It doesn't always directly translate. So I'm trying to add my own kind of touches to it, but keep them with the theme and the shapes of the bike. So now we're duplicating, and here I am completely realising that I am going to be running out of layers pretty quickly. I think at this point we were well over 300 by the time I duplicated the side, and we still had quite a bit of the design to do on the bonnet, and we also had quite a bit to do excuse me, my phone was just playing up recording then. Yeah, we had quite a bit to do on the bonnet, and we still had quite a bit to do on the roof and stuff as well. So I'm trying to be really sparing when it comes to the decals that I'm using here. So rather than kind of doing scallops and swoops and kind of making the shapes a little bit more interesting, I opted for some really simple triangles here to reduce the number of decals that I'm using. Blacken out the grille. Cool feature on the 911 is that you can put decals on that grille as well. Logos work really nice on that. I've decided not to on this one, trying to keep it simple. I was toying with putting an outline around the grille, which lots of the GT3 Rs do have on there. Opted not to in the end. I thought that would just be adding stuff for the sake of it. The number, Troy Corser's number, is not on GT7, so I had to make that myself, which, to be fair, is really one of the easiest decals I've ever made. It's just nice straight edges. But I think having those numbers on there makes it look really cool. And now we can start doing the fun bit, which is putting all the decals in place and making it actually look like a race car. So as with all the other designs I've done so far, I've added all of the decals before I started making it into my favourites, just so it's easier to find. Sourcing decals takes a long while, especially if you can't find them, or if they're a lesser known decal or people haven't tagged them very well. It can be hours just finding the right decals, or the odd one or two that might be a bit niche. So by having that done beforehand, it reduces the amount of time, obviously, for the time lapse and stuff like that. But it's probably another 30 minutes or so on top of making the car, just finding the decals, plus another 10-15 minutes for making the number in this case and making sure it's uploaded correctly. So now we're adding all the smaller logos down the bottom. I've decided to try and keep them all uniform in a line. That's not how they are on the bike, but this fits the car better, and it also means they're a little bit more thought out. A few more logos on the side there for the exhaust that the bike uses, but I've kept it fairly light on the sponsors on the side. I don't think it needs too many. Most of the sponsors are down the bottom in the black section, and yeah, the design does lots of the talking here. If you get issues with bleeding edges on the spoiler, and you don't want to use carbon, then add the base layer colour across the whole spoiler, and then just change the colour of the top with another decal, and that makes it cover a lot better. And normally I keep my end plates fairly clean and fairly simple, but I thought I'm going to try and carry the design on to the side of it here, and I think it actually looked quite cool and complemented it quite nicely. And then I just went and added the Alstare Suzuki logo onto the top of it as well, just to make it look a little bit more interesting. And we're kind of getting into the end of this now. I felt like the roof needed a little bit more, just to tie in those kind of triangles on the bonnet to make it look like they're actually going somewhere. The triangles on the back of the roof already tie in with the back of the car, just below the spoiler nicely. So it just needed a little bit of something there, just to tie it all in to make it look like it's all flowing nicely. Again, adding the shadows consistently on the bottom of the decals, as the rest of the car is. And now I'm just deciding, what am I going to add to this? I don't have many layers left. I have 13 layers left at this point. I always add a little black section here underneath the Porsche. I just think that section looks really messy when decals spill underneath the car. So that's two layers already gone. The back definitely needed a few logos, so tying in the tyre sponsor logos there and the main sponsor of the bike on the back as well. Repeating the number on the top. And then we're pretty much there. This is a little Suzuki logo on the front just to add something to it. And again, I've used 2 decals on each side there to cover up that yellow section of the windows, but I don't like that when it bleeds through. I like it to blend all in. Just resizing some of the decals there, making sure the projection looks good and it's not kind of creeping over the edges. And then onto the mirrors. I spend quite a lot of time on the mirrors with the GT3. There's quite a lot you can do with it. It takes a little while to mask it off. If you change the colour of the mirror in the body colours, it will change the whole section apart from that little bit in the middle that ties into the car. But if you go into it in the decals, then it doesn't quite do it right. So you have to go and individually mask it all out. So I like to have that little blue section there that I've left, so it ties in with the side of the car, and then the yellow as the base for anything else to go on to. And again, I just tied in some of the design here with some of those scallops and some of the shadowing as well. Tidying up some of the edges that are bleeding through, and then just adding a little logo on there to finish off and tie it in with the rest of the car. And then it's just final tweaks, making sure my own logos are on there already. The rear section of the car is quite a nice place to add decals, normally for like the pro ratings or the pro-am ratings of the car, repeating numbers and things like that. And here I'm just experimenting what looks good really. Am I adding too much? Does it look too plain? So I thought I'd just, rather than having it symmetrical, just add the Alstare Suzuki logo again and repeat the number. Change the colour of the wheels. I don't like all black wheels. I like to have them a tiny bit lighter if they're going to be dark. The bike is dark, so I want to keep it authentic. But there we go. Overall, fairly happy with how that come out. It's probably my favourite one I've done so far. It's probably the most challenging one of the bike series I've done so far. Not the most challenging every by any means, but the rest of them are kind of simple shapes and only took me probably about 2 hours. This was probably nearer 4 hours by the time I sourced all the decals, made decals, and actually made the design itself. But I hope you enjoyed that, and lots more exciting bikes to come up in the future. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and also on my other socials, if you could follow me there, you'll see loads of cool stuff as well.